I visited here at Pennsylvania's HersheyPark, and it's one of a home to a sweetest place on earth, and it's one of my favorite amusement park in Pennsylvania section. There is a lot of things going on around here, which of course there's Chocolate Town where you make a greeting, water parks, zoos, Hershey's Chocolate World, and most of course, the thrill rides and coasters. In today's video, it is about to go down as about to rank each roller coasters and attractions here at HersheyPark. So there is going to be a lot of back-to-back switches, and it's going to be the closest calls. One of his coasters, I may have got a chance to ride on it, was definitely close calls, and some of the rivals are just quite tight, and not sure which one I go for. But you want to stay tuned to the very end because the number one spot might be tricky. So you'll never know how that's gonna happen. So anyway, let's kick on to the top attractions at HersheyPark. Number 15 is the Breaker's Edge water coaster, a Canadian manufacturer by Pro Slide Technology. Remember the former site where it used to be the roller soaker? Well, in case if you guys don't remember this one, it was the roller soaker that was the first part of its water coaster, and then it was removed from the park in following of the 2012 season. And it definitely just left there with its station running, and they felt like, well, let's bring a comeback. Normally, the Breaker's Edge coaster has made its way to have it fitted in where the former site of the roller soaker is, and following along with the White Cap Racer for its 2018 season. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to ride that one at that day because it was too cold for this condition, and it's only meant to be operated in the summer season. But as you can tell, that only makes the dips of its airtime hills, some lateral turns, and it's just major fun for the credit. Well, I'll definitely will have to come back again and see if I can ride this one during the summertime. But if you have already went on this one, consider yourself as a noteworthy credit. Number 14 is the Coco Cruiser, a family coaster manufactured by Zamperla. I do enjoy keeping count of coasters that I went on here since I was a little child, and I must noticing that every Junior Thrill Seekers I went on was just the same kind of coaster, just like the one at Six Flags Great Adventure. But as I mentioned it before, this track was used to be yellow and blue steel, but then it was refurbished to white track and brown steel under the surface to match the color of its coconut shape. But as I can see this before, it definitely does deserve the fitting. While anything is out there possible, I don't have any descriptive words to say about this for this ride, so this one is only for adults that are accompanied by a child, and definitely that the parents can ride with their own children to ride this attraction. So far, I don't have anything else to say about this, so gonna have to make a pass after it. The same thing goes with the Little Devil coaster. And if you out there that are definitely not tall enough to ride, it's definitely the good credit to go for a Junior Thrill Seeker coaster. So I definitely will have to pass on that and let somebody else ride it. But if I'm accompanied by a child, yeah, I can definitely ride it with them. That would be a perfect fit for me. But let's get on to the next coaster on my list.
13 is Trailblazer,
a mine coaster made by American manufacturer Aerodynamics. This coaster is relocated in the Pioneer Frontier section. And then, as I mentioned it before, every coaster it happens with me being as a kid has definitely put a comparison with the Comet and Trailblazer. However, I definitely seem to be finding it possible to find a smooth airtime hill. but I wasn't really sure if it was a right fit for me to go on with the big thrill attractions, some great airtime moments, and definitely some amazing turns, if it's bumpy or rattled around. But as I mentioned it before, it was a desire to keep that park from competing from national level. Well, I definitely was waiting to ride this one for the Trailblazer and the other one for the Comet. I tried to figure it out which one had a better airtime and definitely had a lot of fun, thrilling excitement. On a start, it's just a little bit of a dip down and then make your banks toward to the left passing the transfer track. And then right toward the ending, you have a helix after you pass by the queue line where the Storm Rider sits. I just don't really seem to find anything important. But definitely, I had a good kick out of it for the Trailblazer coaster, and I bet that this was definitely one of the favorites for all in family and friends to ride this attraction. So, it better beats off by the Runaway Mine Train by Hurt Your Knees. Whatever I say about the Trailblazer, it's fun to give that a credit. So, maybe that might be why that this one is smoother than the Runaway Train. So, that is a great spot. Unfortunately, this hasn't been beating it over by the Comet where it usually sits, but we'll get to that one a little later. Number 12 is the Wild Mouse Coaster, a Wild Mouse coaster made by German manufacturer Mack Rides. Ah yes, another Wild Mouse coaster under the top 10 ones, but this seemed to be like swaying too many times. So I basically remember this one before that used to be like as enclosed building, and then now we got the outdoor building as the Wild Mouse coaster definitely had too many sharp turns and it definitely swayed me across. The one thing that's flawed about this design is the vehicle, and definitely it's just the lap bar and nothing to give that one separate. Well, in the number 10 spot, the beat over number 9 being by Green Lantern was much better than the other one. But this lap bar was poorly main designed. I don't know why were the officials thinking about this, but as I mentioned it before, I don't really seem to find anything that's right out of it. And I'm definitely comparing it up to Dorney Park and Wild Water Kingdom's Wild Mouse. It definitely has some more brake pressures that cars usually stop to load in the station. But despite that I find some differences with the Wild Mouse coasters, I definitely have to say that they're nearly identical. One on the other side and one that is mirrored copy on the other. But as I mentioned it before, it was an on-ride camera during one of the drops. And this one definitely knows that this Wild Mouse was sharping left and right, and definitely a lot of dips and downwards to it. So, well, I gotta say Wild Mouse wasn't in my top 10. Everybody's gonna be shocked right at this point because some other coasters are definitely smoother than a Wild Mouse attraction. Well, honestly, I definitely got a good kick out of it for the Wild Mouse. I really enjoyed the coaster, but I think the Dark Knight one had a lot much improvement over the years, and definitely the Wild Mouse or the lap bars, hopefully they can change the restraints, so that way they have one restraints on the left and the other restraints on the right. We'll see its update when I finally visit back to the park again. Number 11 is Laugh Tracks. Laughing Place A? Just kidding. Made by German manufacturer Mauri. There was something going on with the first hint of HersheyParks in 2015 when it was released. So each clue would consist of the riddle and relating to the theme of the attraction. So every Tuesday for 4 weeks until Laugh Tracks was officially announced, with the official name Animated On-Ride POV with the photo ops and ride themes. When you first walk into the queue line, you can see yourself strapping right to the face and definitely looks silly and craziness enough. This is where you can take the photo ops right in line. And as I'm noticing, my phone definitely does know it was a lot of like sketches and definitely looks how big it is and long it is. So I definitely really felt like this was kind of really silly to see this, and so funny to see what the difference looks like. It's more likely a laugh tracks to picture a reflection. Mostly closed indoors are definitely around the building, and then once you walk into the station, your feet and your whole self of your body will glow up into different colors. Once ride process, it all starts with the lift hill. No, it's not a launch, but there's a lot of great reflections here from in between, from the clown's mouth, the fire flames, the reflection mirrors at the end, and of course, so many of each kind of graphics. But I mentioned to say about this, Laugh Tracks was so much fun. And I might say that this was a little dizziness going on, but thankfully I did survive okay. And basically, nevertheless, everybody's been watching it closely, and definitely getting off the ride was like a lot of fun. We think we should do it again. But as I mentioned it for Laugh Tracks, it was a great kick out of it to enjoy it. So I definitely will have to say this, that the Laugh Tracks was able to have it all perseverance with the spinning attraction beating over Wild Mouse. And I might gotta say that this one was the best. And I will have to admit that the Laugh Tracks will have to keep going for its next operation of the season. So give this one a laugh tracking whirl. Number 10 is the Lightning Racer, a dueling wooden coaster made by American manufacturer Great Coasters International, or GCI for short. Ever wonder what it's like to be here at the race day here for a drag strip? Well, now you're here for luck. Lightning Racer is one of the best dueling wooden coasters of all time. And with that being said, they have been voted one of the world's 25 best wooden roller coasters as the Golden Ticket Awards, and definitely what everybody's expecting to say to present as the amusement today on the magazine cover. And now the day has already passed by its 25th anniversary. It's now their 26th annual here for the coaster of the Lightning Racer. What these two teams are represented to be Thunder and Lightning, but not to be confused with sports between basketball or hockey. It's one of the big tracks here from the cars that definitely take on with its ride, and most likely it's a great side-by-side track, unlike the one that goes side by side next to the dueling coasters. It's kind of like the same one as the wooden coaster Gwazi, the one at Busch Gardens, Tampa, but we all expected that everybody races each other's, and Gemini, the one at Cedar Point. Those two tracks are definitely kind of a little uncomfortable and a little bumpy rattling going on, but as I could say now that the Thunder side definitely got a little bit smoother, while the Lightning side seemed to be like it was a close contact range. And I don't know which one will be bumpier if it's more or less. What I seem to be knowing as, I was able to note that this ride seemed to be like a little bit smooth, but they found out with the legs slamming into the lap bar, and maybe that might be the shoulders that definitely can hurt on both sides of the train from left to right. And yet they could definitely be smoothing around a little bit. But as I noticing that the Lightning Racer was fun to race for anybody, it's definitely one of the most famous wooden coaster classic ever built. And I wanted to say, I enjoy the Lightning Racer. Feel free if you wanted to make a competition, and definitely see if you can win once or more to win against the opponents. But no, this is not the grand prize. It's just fun for everyone. Lightning Racer is a great way to have its dueling coaster side to neck. I really enjoyed this coaster. What about you? Let me know if you really like that ride. Number 9 is the Super Duper Looper, a looping coaster made by German manufacturer Adam Schwarzkopf. First time I rode this here at HersheyPark when I was like a Hershey person, I wasn't really sure if I was able to ride the Super Duper Looper and into the cave and on the way out. At the start of the lift hill, definitely goes right down into the angle and hit the Super Duper on the loop. That's the only element that goes upside down and then right around from the circuit. And I finally passed it. Well, I wasn't pretty sure if it was smooth as butter or a little shaking and rattling going on. Maybe that might be why, but I'm trying to give a comparison look from the other coaster of Scorpion One at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Super Duper Looper is also equivalent the same one as the goes with the Magic Mountain of the new Revolution. When I expected to ride this one, I feel the comparison with the one at Magic Mountain and the one in here at Pennsylvania's HersheyPark but the Super Duper Looper seemed to be like it was the best coaster to ever have its inversion and the helix to finish up before the end of a ride. I always loved this coaster, and definitely at the start of its time, I think this is for the whole family, and it's not just my favorite part of a coaster, but the old classic coaster I always loved was the Super Duper Looper for its first inversion after the drop. Now I can expect it to say that this Super Duper Looper is sure to be around for a long time, and hopefully this will be continuing for the season of the operation. More likely though that the Super Duper Looper will always be on my best list and making the memories out of it for its lifetime. And by the way though, right past from next to it is where it comes right into number 8. The Comet, made by American manufacturer Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters, or PTC for short, as when I talked about from the Comet to have it's a little bit of a head matchups between Trailblazer, I wasn't sure that this would be the right fit if it was causing the bumpiness or smooth. And therefore, I always found it at the right spot to be in the number 10 spot to the number 8 spot. So I bet that the Comet seemed to be like it was the fun coaster attraction. I was able to ride this over and over again. But unlike the Trailblazer, that's definitely one of the best air times to go right in from the small hill and up. Well, it seemed like it was okay with the smooth one to go past from the queue line of Storm Runner. But I say about the Comet was definitely one of its favorite attractions for the old wooden roller coaster. And that one is on my favorite list for the old classic wooden roller coaster. But I wanted to say that this was be removing the well-known kink that was in the lift hill. But I wasn't sure enough that it would be the right choice with the vehicles. But then it was replaced with the PTC trains for the 2024 season. That's definitely a lot much different than the old classic PTC trains. Well, the next time that I visit back again, I think this PTC trains that are new will be a lot much better than the old one. I love this track layout. It used to be a lot of modified double outs and back, and when I mentioned to say before, it was a lot of great air times and from the small hills and right into the train station where the brake run comes in with the curve before it stops and then advances to the train station. This is one of my favorites. I gotta say the Comet was definitely one of the best rides I've ever been on. Nothing to be seen to be bumpy, it's just very good and really amazing. I gotta say that the Comet was definitely on the good list to have it all. Once again, I don't really find anything that's more comparable with the Smooth Coaster, but that's where I'd always beat with the list. And you always noticing about the Comet, you may have just experienced it, that this one is a great classic attraction for everyone. And maybe that is why that it was over 80 years. Hopefully that will continue to go running through the season too. The lift hill is definitely one that's splendid to see the sights around. And unlike the one from the top of the view angle, this one got a pretty nice angle up the lift hill before sending it down. I will always remember this one, and maybe the time will be another ride again to do it once or twice. Number 7 is the Jolly Rancher Remix, a boomerang coaster made by Dutch manufacturer Vekoma. It was previously known as Sidewinder from the 1991 to 2021 season. What we expected now, but the Sidewinder is really what the color scheme of black tracks and white supports. But now in this day of the 2022 season, they're looking to spice this one up to add its Never Candy in the lineup. By 2022 season, they'll have it alongside with the Zamperla and the New Blends Flat Ride with some several elements added to the roller coaster and upgrading to the ride's system tunnel, a different sensory effects. And upon its opening, they're definitely both literation of the roller coaster receiving positive reviews and critics and guests. But now, at the 2022 season, it was a different color to have its candy theme of the Jolly Rancher. The theming of the station was absolutely amazing. I love this setup that most likely the Jolly Ranchers is just so much incredible lighting effects when you get into the train station. and boarding a ride vehicle, this was so amazing. And the lightings seem to be amazing too, at the start of its lift hill, going backwards, and then descends forward and then heads into the elements, the tunnel, the loop, and up with the vertical lift hill on the other side of it before sending it backwards. I know every boomerang coasters are totally the same, but when I think about the Sidewinder, that's definitely like nothing at all. This Jolly Rancher remix turned out to be like it's amazing. I love the graphics though, and it's incredible that the elements is turning out to be going forwards and backwards. But whenever you think about the Jolly Rancher remix, you can go to flat ride first, or roller coaster first, or you can just go with the roller coaster first and then a flat ride next. The twist and the turns. This is really one of amazing attractions I've always ridden. So if you have a Jolly Rancher remix, see if you can definitely beat the Jolly Rancher remix coaster and some flat rides too. Jolly Rancher remix is definitely nearing its to a 5th spot, but it's still not enough to make the top 5. But whenever you feel like it, you're not ready or not, you're up to the challenge. At number 6 we have is the Great Bear, an inverted coaster made by Swiss manufacturer B&M. Like any other inverted coasters, the Great Bear is one of its best on its own track setup. Next to the Spring Creek, this was one of the different inversions before making its top at the enormous of its half. It was the 6th coaster and operated as the 4th steel roller coaster. At first point, it definitely starts off including with the steel coaster by the Super Duper Looper, a log flume named the Coal Cracker, and the Spring Creek, and it was after the constellation of the Ursa Major. Major is representing the number of the stars within the constellations. And then by the time it gets opening public, it receives the positive reviews for critics and guests. This was the smoothest ride, and I really gotta say about the Great Bear, whenever I got a chance to make the ride count, I gotta say that this one was one of the best. From its inverted coaster, nothing feels like it's a lot of gravity to feel like you're rattled around or anything. But I don't seem to find anything that's similar to the one from the Superman's flying coaster, or eventually Batman the Ride, or maybe like none other than the joke from the Dragon's Challenge. But I might say the Great Bear was a great positive exceptions, and I wanted to say that this was a fun attraction. I really can't wait to be on this ride again, and for some other reasons, there's still a lot of things to be done. But I would say the Great Bear is a great positive to make that review, and one simple step. But one thing is, best elements, and then right to the end of a ride, you're all over the place, and you definitely had a lot of fun time in the moment to feel like that you're all around and then heading back to the train station. I bet the Great Bear is definitely one of the best coasters all time. And yeah, talk about the tongue twister. I mean, I gotta say that this was one of the wraparounds before it comes down to the downhill drop, and then before you get right into the half of the loop. So that might be one way that I could definitely describe it as. Up and over, and then with the loop. This is one favorite attraction. And let me tell you, you can't beat without the Great Bear. Constellation is everything. At number 5 is Storm Runner, a launch coaster made by Swiss manufacturer Intamin. Alright, so one thing I have to say, it is a tough battle to go with the range between of those two Intamin coasters, the one with the vertical lift hill and the launch track. Yeah, as you know, this thing, it definitely has to utilize over the shoulder restraints, and it's the same thing just like the one in Fahrenheit. Loading station, switch tracks, and some accelerated coasters. Unlike the one in Kingda Ka, this one was a short hill. The ride had a lot of near-miss points with the free attractions by the monorail, Tri-Gulch Railroad, and even the Trailblazers. And definitely what I might have to say about this, the pre-recorded voice says this: once it's ready for a train launch, it will say it and command.
Now get ready, here we go.
Yeah, but I always have to say about this, and you're out of here. When the train climbs vertically, it goes with the 150-foot top hat. Unlike the enormous top hat one, if you ever to find a comparison with Top Thrill 2 or King the Comet, it's now a defunct coaster. And then before climbing up the 135-foot tall Cobra Loop, and then it traverses the Flying Snake Dive after a Heartline roll, and then the dive drop. I gotta say, those final inversions was sick. I don't really think that this would be a hugest intense track to find things that's right out of the way. But when I think about the Snake Dive one, it goes right past the Trailblazer, and then you just go right into the train station to finish things up before the brake run. When you're noticing about the Storm Runner, you definitely would have a lot of blitz going on. But certainly, I wouldn't say that the Storm Runner had a lot of huge negative perceptions. And not even anybody can definitely be there. Because one thing I definitely had a lot of close calls was how intense this was, how fast it was going, and maybe that was why the rival had put it up. That's why it goes right into the other side of the coaster to have its great effort. And that's why you may have noticing that Storm Runner was definitely in my top 5 coasters into the list of the chain. This is really what I don't even expect that everybody was looking at the ride. More likely than getting on and feel like you're shooken up for anything. This was a close call and contact. But with the next ride, you're about to be shocked down because the number 4 spot was Fahrenheit, also a Swiss manufacturer by Intamin. Shortly after 4 years, it was turned to be for the next improvement coaster, Fahrenheit, and it was definitely one of its better design graphics, featuring a lift hill and the first drop. Storm Runner doesn't have a lift hill, it only happens to be the launch track to send into the 150 top hat. That was where I saw things going right up to the vertical lift hill, and when I feel it, I can feel like I've been flying up in the air into the sky. No joke, but that was crazy. And one of the best elements was the Cobra roll, 2-time back-to-back Cobra rolls, and then before the turn, the airtime, and definitely the last curve before you come to the brake run. At least if you're not just like 100 degrees sweating now, this Fahrenheit is definitely going to sweat you more with the steepest coaster and with its first drop, 97 degrees. Now hopefully you're not sweating up here across on the vertical lift hill, and you're definitely sweating like it's 111 degrees out. And one of the better turns is the Norwegian loop. That's rolling from left and dives through the half loop down to the ground. Well, not really the Cobra roll, that's one thing. But when this is the back-to-back corkscrews, that's definitely 2 consecutive times in a row. Thankfully, it was so much force that everybody was definitely screaming, and we always noticing that Fahrenheit was the best part of the coaster track. I gotta say, that was a lot of force, and I might have to say that I will have to ride this one so many times to beat over Storm Runner. See if you can definitely be brave enough in its vertical lift hill for the Norwegian loop and to the finishing Cobra roll. That's why it's the hard competition matchups between the Storm Runner and the Fahrenheit. Alright, we are in the top 3 right now, but next one is going to be the close call advantage. So you're about to be witnessing the top 3 coasters in the list. Be aware that some people are going to be shocked, while the others might say that everything is just fine. So get ready. Number 3 is Candymonium, a hyper coaster made by Swiss manufacturer B&M. One occasion to another, after you walk in from the entrance from the Chocolate Town, you're definitely greeted up with the Hershey's Kisses fountain and the ride of the Candymonium. That is where I got started after passing by the carousel and the fountain. But as I mentioned it before about the Candymonium, this was amazing first drop and some final air times, passing right by the fountain and right to the trim brakes before making the bank right turn to the train station. Plus, I also love the train designs. They're definitely both different colors, right in the range from Reese's, Twisters, and definitely Hershey's too. I'm just trying to compare it if it was Orion, the one at Kings Island, or most likely if it was Fury 325. But as I mentioned for Candymonium, it was a lot of fun airtime. You have the upper helix, you have some amazing air times, a little bit of a turnarounds, And definitely the grand finale from right around the track of the Kisses Fountain before the trim breaks, and then you just make the bank turn to the right to get right into the train station. I mean, a lot of people were definitely loving Candymonium to be the number one spot, but I might have to say that number 3 was definitely the close call on the range. So I wasn't pretty sure if I was convenient on that. I really loved this attraction. This was also smooth too, trying to get over right by Nitro, but it seems like it's a close call to carry in there. May not be anybody that wanted to give away with it. But times went on, as I'm noticing before that Candymonium was one of the best attractions, and it won't be anybody. When you get on the ride and in the vehicle, you'll definitely will have a lot of forcing airtime moment, especially getting around by the fountain and then right to the train station. Quick timing. That's more companion in the air. Candy Mix is the favorite to go for. This was definitely one of the best attractions here too, from the Chocolate Town section from entering into the park with some fantastic main entrance prop. So far, I have nothing else to say about this attraction, but for more importantly though, that the Candymonium was one of the best coaster on my list. But speaking of Candymonium, the next one is that you're definitely going to be surprised of. Number 2 is Sky Rush, made by Swiss manufacturer Intamin. Well, I don't see it coming to it this, but you all may have noticed it that I had it in a number 2 spot. While this seemed to be overrated, it seemed like this was a lot of force and totally enormous airtime and turns. And while the logo has already been updated and its queue line now represents the flashing lights, the amazing sound, and the speed recording of the lift hill play the sound as a jet taking off.
Flight 2012, clear for takeoff.
Yeah, exactly when you're always ready to clear for takeoff, you're definitely up to the ascending of the lift hill. And it seemed like it's almost a launching cable mechanism to have it up toward the hill and then bring you descending down. This is the rushing speed like Sonic the Hedgehog, rushing forward and backwards. But as an unlikely of Millennium Force, this definitely turned out to be a lot of force impact with some huge heavy airtime moments. And definitely I had one of the Coaster Nanos in my room, and this one is what I always will never forget this. I built this and it was just amazing how to make that coaster come into my collection. And a cool thing about it, that Sky Rush was definitely one of its best 5th roller coaster new ride in 2012. That was additionally in every year except for 2016 and 2020. It was definitely ranked in the Golden Ticket Awards as one of the world's 50 best steel roller coasters. Well, I might say I have a favorite steel coaster in HersheyPark, and that's only for Sky Rush. But this was not only in my top ranking, but I have to go with some every roller coasters here in HersheyPark. But I expected that. The Sky Rush was amazing forceman. A lot of big, heavy airtime moments, a lot of swaying, and this turn was crazy at the first drop. That really seemed to be like it was improving to everybody, and I know that most people are acting like, whoa, what just happened? Or some other person would say, holy shit, written all over it. I mean, I don't know how the designer is thinking, but this concept turned out to be just like that. Best steel coaster always has to go with the right credit for Sky Rush for anything, but most people are always complaining about the thigh crushers right between the restraints. But if you wanted to see the next video, you can check out the calling card info up in the corner. But I mentioned to say thigh crushers, more likely the shoulder restraints. It definitely just hurts from the chest. It's a little bit painful on that. Well, it seemed like to be a nice ride for Sky Rush, but now you gotta admit that when you are up at the hill, you're definitely going to feel a lot much force when you're rolling around, going back and forth, and I bet you're flying and soaring like an eagle. Maybe that is why the Sky Rush brings up to the jet with some huge heavy airtime compressions. This is the different comparison with the other one as Fahrenheit. and I will have to beg that Sky Rush made that one with the great list. But there's only one thing left, and that means in the number 1 spot. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the roller coaster winner, part of the best attraction at Pennsylvania's Hershey Park, Wildcats Revenge, made by American manufacturer Rocky Mountain Construction. What I'm seeing to tell you that this one was the best coaster that I've ever ridden. And that one definitely beats over my other favorite coaster of Sky Rush. It was a close call, but that was so much insane elements. Well, now there is no more Wildcat original coaster. This seemed to be like it's an iBox track, and it turned out to be one of amazing forces on the turns to be how insane that is. With Wildcat's Revenge, I put it into this spot. I might say that every element was sick. I mean, I have no judgment on that. And it's best to ride it at night here with the amazing, incredible light effects and amazing elements on the Cobra roll and some heavy, nifty airtime moments. Well, of course, about the original Wildcat, this has additionally received critical acclaims and was gained in negative receptions, making it rougher and rougher. But with the closed major refurbishment, that was why Wildcat's Revenge comes in to save the day. And listen, I just don't like how the brake sounds like that, but without the sound, it just happened to be like it's smooth. Well, now this is an amazing comeback. That's why I deserve it as a number 1. Of course, with the one thing with the reference, and that definitely gives us with The Cat Is Back, this Top Steel coaster deserved its Golden Ticket Awards from 2023 to 2025. That's why this one was incredibly smooth. This is roaring to the beast. And if I ever wanted to get back on this attraction, I'm going to say, I'm going to do it again. More likely than more times than other wooden coasters. So that's why I deserve it as a Wildcats Revenge success. And with that being said, that's all for everything for the top attraction. I hope you all enjoyed with my top 15 attractions at Pennsylvania's Hershey Park. So which one is your favorite roller coaster in the chain of the Hershey Park? Do you love that Wildcats Revenge? Do you hate it? Which attraction do you like best? Let me know in the comment box below. But anyways, thank you all for watching. And with that being said, stay tuned for the next videos as I'll be able to post them more on my social page. And be sure to keep up and subscribe to my channel by hitting the like button, hit the notification bell, and be sure to find me on my social medias so that way you won't miss out to any of each. But in the meantime though, thanks for joining us, and I will see you again next time for as a while as the top rides at Hershey Park Dial. This is Chris from Son of Beast, and I'll see you all for the next video. Bye for now.
If you don't, somebody will.